Welcome to Mike Drops Up Close. We speak to entrepreneurs and thought leaders from all around the globe. Tune in and hit subscribe. Stay informed with inspiring stories from our amazing guests. We get up close and personal, covering subjects from business, marketing, and mindset. Hosted by Michael Kalisperis, a successful digital marketer and property investor.
Welcome everybody to Mike Drops Up Close. We've got Daven Michaels on the show today. He's absolutely legendary. I connected with Daven a couple of years back, and I've seen him at his events, and he's an absolutely brilliant guy. I can't really sum him up enough because the guy's got such a colourful history and entrepreneur journey that I could summarise what I could explain about him, but it's not enough, basically. So we'll get Daven to give us a bit more of a background of his journey and get up close. So Daven Michaels is a true global lifestyle entrepreneur. He's an international speaker, New York Times bestseller author. He's a CEO of 123 Employee, and I've used them, fantastic company, and I still use them. It's basically a premier outsourcing service, and they really do help with absolutely all areas of business. He's also an author, an event producer, global real estate investor. He does it all. He's a brilliant family man. He's absolutely really likable. He does so many things. I mean, are you even into software, haven't you? You go into the whole. He does so many things. I just literally. You are the epiphany of entrepreneur. So I just want to firstly introduce you to Mike Drop. So thank you ever so much, Daven, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And basically just ask you a few questions about your journey, how you've actually come to where you are now. So basically, I know from my research that you started at a very young age. It was about 15 years of age, was it? I think it was. Yeah. So could you explain what you were doing at that age and how you started your entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Mike. I started my business when I was 15. I was in the clothing business, and it was a very interesting time. I graduated high school a couple years early, not because I was smart, it was just because I was driven, and I really didn't like high school, and I felt like I was ready to start my entrepreneurial journey. And I was designing clothing for music groups. Most of my bands had nothing going on. Most were playing their garage or very small venues, but a short while after we opened for business, MTV came on the air, changed the face of music and changed our lives. So we were working with bands that had nothing going on. Within about 90 days, most of my bands had record deals. Within a year, they were selling millions of albums. And we found ourselves working with some of the biggest bands of the 80s and 90s. And it was a wild ride, especially at such a young age. And that was really how my business started. And if you're watching this video, I'm sure you have a story, an entrepreneur story. And I do too. I mean, I've done a lot of things over the years. From there, I started a telecommunications venture. Very humble beginnings, but 5 years later, we were in 60 cities across the U.S. I sold to a public company, took back stock in that company, and then that company got bought out. So that moment in time kind of changed my life. That was pretty exciting. From there, I became the biggest electronic music event producer in the U.S. I used to throw parties for 15 to 20,000 people a night, which was cool. And because of that built-in fan base, I had a short career as a recording artist, pretty long career as a music and television producer. Worked with some of the biggest bands in the world, about 15 years. And quite frankly, I'd still be in that business today, but Napster came out, and 50 million people were downloading free music, and I thought the music business was over, and it certainly wasn't over. I mean, the biggest label today is Apple, right? Yeah. But it certainly changed. It was nothing compared to what it used to be. So what made sense for me was I felt like the next transition was television. I knew how to produce music. I could figure out how to produce TV, and I did. And I never really had any big hits in TV because I was only there a few years, because then our outsourcing business took off. And we've been around for almost a decade now. We're celebrating our 10th year. And today we have over 550 employees at our 3 centers on 3 continents.
That's amazing.
We work with young, bright entrepreneurs just like all of you that are watching this, and some of the biggest thought leaders on the planet, like Mike. And we do all the busy stuff in their business, internet marketing, social media, telemarketing, back office stuff, back office tasks, all the busy stuff in their business, so they can focus on the income generating activities. and the things they want to do in their life, have a good time. And so that's what we do. Our mission at 123 Employee is to rescue lifestyle-starved entrepreneurs, give them their time back and their lives back, and we enjoy doing it.
And I know for a fact that you've got an amazing book out there called Outsource Smart, which I highly recommend to everybody.
Thank you.
It's a really, really, really great book, and it's really, really, if you're on an entrepreneur journey, you highly need it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's a good book. At 123 Employee, we're really marketing centric. We realize that the lifeblood of all business is marketing. Now, some people, if they don't tell us otherwise, we always focus on the marketing at 123. But sometimes, people have that dialed in and they just want, their social media done or appointment setting or whatever that is, and we're happy to do it. But generally, we focus on marketing, and I'm very marketing centric. I believe that if you can dial in the marketing in your business, if you have a ton of business coming through the doors, if your bank accounts are overflowing with money, then you can probably buy yourself out of just about any challenge you face in your business. So that's always my focus. Outsource Smart, I think, was like my 10th book. And with that one, that was the first one, though, that was published through a major publisher. That's my little dog, Penny, which is on McGraw-Hill. And it has done really well. I mean, it hit the New York Times bestseller list, which was cool. I like the book. I think it's a good book. I don't think it's a good title.
I like it.
I wanted to call the book "Living the Laptop Lifestyle." But at the time, one of my good friends, Mark Anastasi, had just written a book called Laptop Millionaire, and he had just put it out, which was fine. Again, I don't think it mattered. We were both fine with each other's titles. But my publisher liked Outsource Smart. But the reality is, look, people don't go into bookstores looking for books on outsourcing. They look for what the net result of outsourcing
solution,
is, right?
absolutely.
To be able to put your business on autopilot, live the laptop lifestyle, or what have you. And so I fought for that title, and then after a while I gave up. I was like, people support what they create. I wanted the publisher to get behind it, so we went with Outsource Smart. But hey, the book did well.
I like that name. I've got to say, I can understand the laptop lifestyle makes a lot of sense, but if you think about long term, we're moving more to mobile. So Outsource Smart carries on. And
that is true. When we were talking about living the laptop lifestyle, then we thought about, well, maybe calling it living the iPad lifestyle or living the mobile lifestyle.
We don't know what's next, do we? There could be some sort of like holographic.
Yeah, who knows what's next, right?
So
living the holographic lifestyle or the virtual VR lifestyle or augmented reality lifestyle. So that is true. That is true. When you list technology, you run the risk of obsolescence, right?
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because I'm massively impressed, because for me, I've always been slightly entrepreneurial. As a child, I rip people's toys apart and rebuild something completely different. So I'm a creator. I love to create things. And but for me, a challenge in my life really hit me hard when my son was made severely disabled through negligence, unfortunately. And we forgave the hospital that did this, but unfortunately, it's left my son blind, deaf with spastic cerebral palsy, and pretty much just with taste left, from being born totally healthy. And sometimes these hardships can really, either give you the fire to move on or destroy you. For me, they gave me a bit of fire to become even more entrepreneurial. And so I ended up investing in property. You cute dog. You should meet mine. It's called Miles. So cute. And I started investing in property. I met Simon Zucci. I went on Simon Zucci's course. You know Simon Zucci very well. Very, very great friend of mine.
I love Simon.
Yeah, top guy. And I'm doing some work for his partner at the moment. But what I wanted to know from you is did you ever have an instance like that really sort of not a trauma, but some sort of hardship that made you think, right, it's either sink or swim kind of moment, or would you say every business that you've actually been in, there's been challenges like that, and that's what's helped you keep growing that business? I mean,
yeah, I think people certainly have to have a why, right? And for me, what happened was at a very young age, I got really, really hungry. And what happened was I grew up kind of a lower middle class neighborhood, basically. We certainly weren't poor, but we didn't have any money. My dad never made more than $30,000 a year, except for 1 year, and that was the 1 year that I actually heard yeses instead of nos. And my mom didn't work, so we lived off of $30,000 a year, which would be almost, people do it today, of course, but that would be a tough life. Back then, though, it was a different world, right? Inflation hadn't set in, and you could buy a house for, I think my parents bought their house for 30 grand or something like that. A whole different world. But anyways, what happened was, I probably just would have had this kind of okay existence, but there was a person in my life, my Uncle Mo, who was the brightest man I ever knew. And my Uncle Mo was responsible for almost every huge life-changing decision in my business, because if my Uncle Mo said something, I did it without question, because he was a genius. He was a scholar. And he was interesting too. He was a self-made man as well. He was the son of a junkyard dealer, one of 10 kids. I mean, if I thought I grew up, lower middle, he grew up dirt poor. And he grew up to become a prolific doctor in Beverly Hills, very famous. Wow. He was Ronald Reagan's doctor, and he was Kiss's doctor, if you remember the band Kiss. A lot of huge celebs. And so what would happen is my Uncle Mo was married. My Uncle Mo married my mom's sister. And like I said, he was very well off. And so on the holidays, we would go to Beverly Hills and hang out with the family. We'd always have a good time, and the house was beautiful, and the cars were beautiful, and everyone and everything was beautiful. And I was like, hey, I like this. This is pretty cool. And then I'd go back to my life. And I was like, oh, man. And then I go back to his life, and everything was awesome, and I come back to my life. And it got me very hungry at a young age. I wanted more than I had. And that got me so hungry at such a young age. I started just working. I mean, I had my first job at 13 through a government program that allowed me to actually have a job. And then I started my business at 15, and it's been over 3 decades, and I just never stopped. And honestly, 98% of the time, I'm just hungry and driven. Now, luckily, I love what I do. So I love the impact that we're able to make as a company, both for our clients, but also for our employees, because, we estimate about 12 to 1,500 people eat every single day because of what we do in the Philippines. It's great to be able to make that kind of an impact. But also what I love is that, I speak all over the world, and that allows me to get the entertainment out of me. And so it's super fun. And I get to travel the globe. I can't believe I get to see the world. I mean, had you sat me down as a teenager and said, this is what your life was going to be, I never would have even believed you, So it's very humbling. But it's really awesome. So that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps driving me. Although I have to say I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I've decided that in the next few years I'm going to kind of semi-retire. I just only because I know most of my peers who've retired, they get bored after a year or two and come right back. But
That's so true.
I just don't know what it's like to not work. I mean, I've worked my entire life since 13. So I had 13 years that I wasn't working, and then that was it. And I've been working ever since.
You might invest in some sort of franchise retirement home or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I have some ideas. We're going to start we're in the process of starting a private equity group. So I'll start investing in other companies. I'll probably sit on the board of some companies. But I don't think I'll probably own companies on my own anymore. I'll be more of an investor than
it can be lonely, can't it? It can be lonely, I think. I know you've got a large group of people that are working for you, and it's a massive group of people. But I think, when you're on this entrepreneur journey, when you're doing stuff, creating the stuff on your own, literally, there's risk there. Obviously, there's a lot of risk, and people seem to think, you get to a certain level when they've had it easy, and like you've explained, it's never been that like that, and I think it's really important, which is why I got a massive lot of respect for you, because you've actually made multiple, successful businesses. Yeah. You're extremely busy. You've got so much energy, which really inspires me big time. Honestly, you have also, so much energy.
I do, and I keep going. But also, my greatest asset is my team. People see me really achieving a lot of stuff, and I do. And I mean, you see, we come up with new software products and events and speaking all over the globe and this and that. But honestly, I could not do it without my team.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's if you're a solopreneur and you're working from home and you're kind of on your own, you have very little help, and you're just trying to kind of make a living and get by. But when you have a team, it's like, man, you come up with these ideas, and then you've got people to implement them. I have an unfair advantage, but that it wasn't always like that, right? So I mean, you start from scratch, and that's what I did. And then you start to get some help. And luckily today you can have, virtual help, which is inexpensive.
Exactly.
And then you start to get some leverage on your business. And then you grow that business, and then the next thing is you start bringing on C-level executives and people like you, and then your business really explodes because it's not just you anymore. You've got big brains, and you've got implementation, you've got leverage, but it does take time. It's certainly a process.
Absolutely, because you've got great people like Bijal, who I've connected with many times, and he's such an asset to your company, such a top man. Really, really, really nice guy. And you can just for the energy and the heart, I would say. For me, for me, business is about integrity. And it's one thing. We want to be successful financially and so on. But for me, I want to be successful in partnerships with people I can trust and actually connect with and grow successfully together. And that means a lot to me. So when I see what you've done with partners and the way you've gone forward with your business with people like Bijal, I think it's a testament to you again, because you actually you got the final decision at the end of the day. And it's the same with to get these people in your life, you've got to have the right foresight.
It's true. The biggest question in my mind that I will never have the answer to, that I'm so curious and fascinated by, is what do people say about me when I walk out of the room? It's like, you never really know. Like I would really love to think that when I walk out of the room, people go, that Daven, he's a good guy.
Well, I can tell you now straight away, Bijal is absolutely in love with you as a boss, and he really does sing your praises. So I can tell you now exactly. I can give you an answer for that straight away. And I know, again, like I said, I'm not just kissing butt here. The reality is,
I love Bijal too, and we have like an amazing story. Bijal's been with me, 7 or 8 years, and at the time when we got together, he was really down on his luck. He was a successful guy that had a lot of blows that it really crippled him.
Like me.
but I'm really good at recognizing diamonds in the rough, and so I thought, this guy's amazing. And I said, why don't you come work with us and we'll take over the world. That's what we did. And what's great was that at the time I had hundreds of employees, but I didn't have C-level. He was my first C-level person that came on board. And so I had all these ideas and things that I knew that if I implemented, they would completely revolutionize my business, but I couldn't do it because there was only one of me, even though there were hundreds of other people in the company. And so when he came on board, I kind of rescued him, but he rescued me right back. And
Absolutely.
It's been a wonderful relationship over the last decade, almost decade. So it's been pretty cool.
I mean, like I say, I think that is a testament to you and Bijal, obviously. But I mean, the fact that you could see that,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I love people, and I try to do right by people. I want to treat people the way I want to be treated, and I think it shows. And I hope that when I do walk out of the room, people do say, that Daven, he's a good guy. But the reality is, you never know. You never know. People might hate me.
There's always going, as far as I'm concerned, and it's a true saying, I totally believe it. You're never going to please everybody, and you could be really nice, and someone might say, God, he's so nice. That's just makes me sick. He's so nice. You just can't. You can't win. I mean, I was spreading awareness about my son to help other families, and by spreading awareness, I had people kind of like trolls. By spreading awareness, what happened to my son, and it helped. It saved a few families from their children getting brain damage, like my son. Yet you think you couldn't get trolls for that kind of side of things, and you still get trolls. It's just crazy.
I guess you can't keep everybody happy all the time, and also, quite frankly, you're kind of nobody if you don't have haters, right? You're not big enough if you don't have some people that can't stand you. So, you do the best you can, but I do try to do right by people, and it's been wonderful. I mean, it's interesting. Who was I talking to the other day? Gosh, I was with my girlfriend Liz. I think it was my best friend Chris. And Chris and I have been friends for 30 years almost. And we were talking, and now I remember the conversation. So I'm in my 50s, okay, and my best bud Chris is in his late 40s, and he's like he really has a hard time with getting older. Me, I've surrendered to it. Like
You're younger than me, for goodness sake, and I'm 41. So
you look great. You look great. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I don't have a problem with aging at all. I totally surrendered to it, and probably the reason why is I've never been happier in my life. And he said that. He goes, I worry about getting old. He goes, but I look at you and you're happy and this and that. And I said, yeah, I said, I've never been happier in my life ever. And if I can think of probably the only two reasons, well, one, I'm sure, you're more knowledgeable as you get older, right? But really, I told him, I said, listen, I've never had more money than I've ever had in my life. And I've never had more friends, and quite frankly, I can't think of anything that makes me any happier. I love having money. I love spending money and buying things and doing cool stuff. And I love hanging out with friends. And I've never had more friends ever in my entire life. So it's like, if you've got love and money in your life, and for some people, money's not important, but to me it is. If you have love and money in your life, I think you're pretty good.
There's nothing to be ashamed about that, because I think you're right. I think people have a misconception with the word money sometimes.
Yeah.
These phrases like "money is the root of all evil," all this kind of. That's made up crap.
Well, actually, I do get that part too, though, because I will tell you this: with more money comes more problems. You always hear that more money, more problems. It's true.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I would rather have more problems and some money than less problems and no money, because I've been there. I've been there.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Scratch and begged for everything I had in the early days. I worked my tail off.
But having
I gave up my teenage years. I gave up my childhood, started my business so young, and it was worth it. It paid off today, but the sacrifice was huge. But yeah, I've had way less money and way less problems, but trust me, I would rather have more money, more problems.
With the money, it helps provide solutions. If you've got no money and problems, then it's a bigger impact, isn't it? Yeah. I wanted to ask you a quick question back to the outsourcing, because I know it's really helped me massively, and partly for you could be working from home, but for me it was like when my son was made disabled, I ended up in hospital for about 3-4 months, and then we came back with a child very disabled in a new world. So moving forward was very, very difficult. So I had to look at different routes, and outsourcing with a VA was perfect for me. So I contacted you guys after an event and hired yourselves, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I wanted to ask a question: is there a business that you think cannot be outsourced? Would there be something out there that would be tricky to outsource?
Yeah, it's a good question. These days, I'd say very little. Now, the key to outsourcing successfully is processes. Okay, so you have to have documented processes. So they're either documented, or they're videos, or they're audios, or some sort of training, and that's the key to all business. I'll give you a perfect example. In the next few years, I'll probably end up retiring from the company. We'll probably end up selling it, and so we're kind of prepping for that now. So we're literally documenting every single process in our business through videos and documentation, so that it's like McDonald's, so that anybody can just sit down, follow the process, and do the task. And that's really the key. So as long as you can process out what you do, you should be able to outsource it. Now, there are specialized businesses, of course. I mean, a perfect example is my buddy Steve. He's a heart surgeon. Nobody's going to take over his heart surgery. That he can't outsource that's for sure. But can he outsource a lot of the back office, a lot of the admin, a lot of the appointment setting and marketing? Absolutely. All the mundane stuff, so he can just focus on the one thing that makes him the most money, and that's surgery. So so certainly there are some businesses that can't be 100% outsourced, but most aspects can be outsourced for sure, if you can document out the process.
Absolutely. And your team, I know for a fact, help with that, breaking down the processes as well.
We do. So if you just come to us as a customer, not necessarily. It's usually kind of, you have some processes and we follow them. But we do have some packages that include strategy sessions with our senior strategists who map out the processes and what have you. Yeah.
Because I had contact with BJ and he was really, really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, would you find, when people wanting to do or take on a virtual assistant, there's always a fear, even a personal assistant, in person, there's always a fear of trust. And I don't know about you, I personally found, and this is not about blowing smoke up the 123 employee, but I actually found more trust in the network of your outsourcing team than people I've actually employed in the past.
Yeah, well, for sure. So we're based in the Philippines. So Filipinos in general are just unbelievably warm, friendly, trustworthy people in general. And so I know that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
When I speak, I used to never really address security. And then I was actually speaking in Florida several years ago. And I just got off stage, and it was lunchtime, and this lawyer came up to me and said, Daven, I have to tell you, I just had lunch with 12 people. They were all buzzing about you and what you had to say in your services. He said, but they all had a question about security. And I was like, oh my gosh, I said, I never really thought of that. So now I address that. And when I think about security in terms of, an entrepreneur's business, I think there's generally three things that you have to be concerned about. One is your client list, right? Because you're sharing your database potentially with your virtual assistant. And as proprietary as that data is to you in running your business, it means very little to somebody that's an employee an ocean away. They just really can't do much with it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The next thing that you might be concerned about would be credit card information, right? Oh, and by the way, backing up to that for a second, there are some other ways too. Is if you did need to really keep information confidential, there are sophisticated CRMs today that allow you to block out information, right?
Which is GDPR.
Sure. And maybe you were handling social security numbers, but your employees could only see the last four digits,
exactly,
things like that, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Next thing would be credit cards, and my employees have my credit cards, and I don't worry about it at all. They use it for booking airline flights and ordering the things that we need. And I just know that the maximum liability on a credit card is $50. So, for example, a couple of years ago, somebody stole one of my credit cards, not in my shop in the Philippines, of course, and racked up about $10,000 in charges, and I didn't get charged a penny. The maximum liability is $50. All the premium cards have zero liability now, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. And then the last thing I'd be concerned about is passwords, right? Because you're certainly going to share your passwords with your employees. And there's a great hack for that. We use a platform called LastPass, and many of our clients use LastPass. And LastPass is like RoboForm or 1Password. It stores passwords, but the great thing is it allows you to share those passwords with your people overseas, and they can use them, but they're encrypted. They can't see them.
Yeah.
And then, let's say you share 10, 20, 30 passwords with your people, and, one day one of your people disappears. Well, you can, and it turns off all of the passwords, and it's done. So you can totally sleep at night, and you're 100% secure. And then that way there's just no question.
Yeah. I mean, and the reason why. I mean, I use LastPass. It's fantastic. It really is, and it's one of the best encrypted, online security systems out there. I wanted to ask you another question. With your software company, because I'm a bit geeky. I don't know if you've done just to go off tangent slightly. Have you ever done any kind of like wealth dynamics? Have you ever heard of wealth dynamics at all?
Do you mean like disk testing, that kind of a thing?
Yes,
or?
yeah.
Yeah,
so
I have. I can't remember where I'm at. Or
I presume you'll create a star as someone that likes the to be on stage, basically.
Yeah, all that.
And there's an idea.
I'm like the visionary, not necessarily the actual executor.
It's a bit like me, but I have got an element of it where I'm a little bit geeky, which is called the mechanic, and I'm quite intrigued by your software company. So I know you had a company that was Social Sonic, was it called?
So we develop software. We have a small dev team, and we generate software. And we don't really do it to sell software. We do it to sell human capital. So what we do is every year or so we come up with a new software application. Last year was Social Sonic. This year we have something in development as well. I think it's called Travel Pro. And what we do is whenever we sell them, we bundle it with a virtual assistant to run the platform for them. So Social Sonic is a lead generation platform for social media. It turns Twitter basically into a CRM. So it allows you to tap into, you know, I think it's like a 300 million person database. Right. It's pretty intense. But we always sell it with a virtual assistant to run the platform for them, because we know that entrepreneurs are busy and they don't have time to do it and they want someone to do it. So we sell the software, but we don't really care that much about the software. We're doing it to sell more human capital. And so last year in 30 days, we did about 1.3 million with Social Sonic. But more importantly, we had about 1,300 new clients at 123 employees. So.
Exactly, and that's what I like about the way your thought process works as an entrepreneur, because you've got your core one thing,
yes,
but you've got so many other angles that you're always, I don't know, almost backlinking to everything. To this, you know.
That's right. We kind of do it in two separate waves, if you will. So everything sells into 123 employees. So if you buy a software application, it comes with a VA. If you buy my book, you'll end up with as a client at 123. If you hear me maybe on an interview, hopefully you'll end up as a client at 123. Everything leads into 123. Ultimately, we sell one thing, right, which is outsourcing, right? We do use other ways to bring people in, but ultimately we sell outsourcing. And if you're watching this, the odds are pretty good that you sell one thing too. But a secondary thing that we also do that is beyond leading everything into 123 is that we also realize that once people utilize our services, they know, like, and trust us, there's a myriad of other things that they would buy from us if we only had them to sell. But we're only in one business, which is outsourcing. So the way we do that is we use our partners. And so we have our joint venture partners that are in different verticals, offer different programs, and we use that to fill the spaces in our business, and we sell other programs through our partners. Yeah. And so it's great because our clients win. They get valuable technology that they need. We win because we get paid a little money for doing it. Our partners win as well. And also we know that, hey, we know that our clients are going to buy that stuff somewhere anyway. It's better to buy it from us, where if they have any problems, we can help them out with it. So
yeah, I mean, I love that, because I come from a design and marketing background, and I've got a company called Effusive Marketing. But when the situation changed in my life with my son, I started to look at investing in property. And property for me is a vehicle. I know I love property, but it's an asset-based vehicle. And I don't really particularly want to deal with tenants as much as many of them are lovely. But my love of my heart is really marketing and that side of things. And for me, actually, I'm starting to do a bit more speaking. But you know, I quite enjoy that. I love to help people and promote you know, the good things in life, basically. And also the fact that no matter how much hardship can hit you, and we've had a lot. I mean, I've written a book called My Little Spartan. I come from a Greek origin family, so the Spartan thing's there, although I was born and bred in the UK. But I call my son My Little Spartan because he's fighting against the odds. Yeah. It's just been released on Kindle, and the hardback's coming out. Well, it should be out any minute soon. And all the profits of that are going straight to charity. So I'll just throw that little plug in there, and I'll probably put the link in below as well as you want.
Sounds good.
But the reason why I wrote that book, and it wasn't writing a book like now, I was just kind of writing bits here and there amongst depression and all sorts of stuff. And the reason why I'm being open now is because I know everyone's been in a situation like that, and that's why I massively connect with you, Daven, and what you've gone through and how you've progressed in your life, and the way you created a product such as 123 Employee, which is absolutely, it really has helped and changed my life, because it massively helped me at the right time. And I really, really, really needed that just to keep things going and churning, you know. And personally, I'm massively grateful for that, and that means a lot to me. I just personally want to say that. I had a post out on Facebook a few days back saying, you know, I'm going to be interviewing Daven Michaels, and a lot of people were saying, oh, brilliant, you know. And I said, what questions would you like to ask? And one guy said, ask him why he's a little bit more expensive than other people. And I said, it's not expensive at all, because I've done other VAs. And
yeah. Well, actually, though, you know, so when you think about outsourcing, there's really two ways that you can outsource. One is you can use freelancers, people that work from home, and the other is you can use a managed facility like 123. And we are more expensive than freelancers. But I have to tell you, every day we get people that have used freelancers that come to 123.
Yeah.
And what will happen is they'll work with a freelancer. Maybe they'll have some success, maybe they won't. But let's say they do, and it works for a while. And then one day the freelancer disappears,
Yeah.
or there's an act of God,
Yeah.
or the power stops working. I mean, brownouts are a regular occurrence in the Philippines, or the phone stops working, the internet stops working. At 123 Employee, everything's redundant. We don't have to worry about hurricanes and storms or internet problems or telephone problems. And there's total redundancy. There's accountability. There's great training, and we just have good people. So you do pay a little bit more. Although I was speaking to somebody the other day, and we were having that exact conversation. They're like, "Well, we've been pricing out facilities, and you're way less expensive." So I suppose price.
Well, I mean, I know from experience. So I put this person totally straight, and I know from experience because I've actually done it. I've done both before I met your company, and it isn't cheaper because at the end of the day, when you've got someone that's doing it from home, or for instance, the problem is you've got to keep them accountable. First of all, they can take a longer period to do things. They can drag things out. So opened window, looked at windscreen, looked at the browser, really drag things out and almost manipulate the time used as such. And then there's the angle of the fact that what I love about 123 is you've actually got a whole source, a pool of people with different skills. So if you've got one person that hasn't got a particular skill, they can easily sort of like connect with someone else within their team that has. And if you're doing it from home as a Filipino, working from home on your own, there's only so much you can do. So personally, I've been there, and I know for a fact it's not massively expensive. It's actually really great value for money, and that's why I wanted to put that out there, because it was quite interesting. And ironically, I asked this gentleman, "Have you used them?" And he said no. So that sort of cemented my thoughts, because I know as soon as you use the service as such, and you've used different services before, you know the difference. Simple as that.
I mean, at the end of the day, the most valuable asset you have is your time. And if you end up having to work with somebody and then you've got to start all over again, you have to do it on kind of a once or twice a year basis or what have you, then you're really wasting a tremendous amount of time. Our goal at 123 Employee is to have you train once. So you kind of train your team lead, and then you're good. And then eventually, when you expand, that person will become your team lead and train future people. So that's the goal, is to save you as much time as possible and make you as efficient as possible. So
cool. So I've got two other questions. So the next question is, like, you're a visionary. You've given us a bit of a insight on what's next. You're looking at eventually sort of like potentially selling it off, selling the company off. But you've given a little bit of a hint. Can you dangle the carrot a little bit? Tell us what's kind of like what kind of software or what you're doing next. That's kind of like Go on, give us a little. Give us a little.
Absolutely. Well, at 123 we do have. We have a lot of things that we're doing. We have a new software platform called Travel Pro, and what it will basically do is it will allow people to tap into beautiful hotel inventory at a ridiculously cheap price, like 10 cents on the dollar.
Cool.
And then they can resell that. And so we have a program where we're going to teach people how to do that, so you can become kind of a travel marketer. You'll have a virtual assistant that will run the whole show for you, and that's pretty neat. We're also in the process of building a new blockchain. We're heavily embedded in the blockchain space. We have been for probably the last year and a half. And so we're building a blockchain, which is probably going to be, the MVP will be done, the beta will be done the next few weeks, so we're going to start beta testing shortly, which is very exciting. I'm very excited about that. And then, in the next few years, when I do kind of move on, start the private equity group and what have you, I'm sure that we'll be continuing to do a lot of stuff in the blockchain space. So we're very, very entrenched in that.
I think there's a massive future in blockchain, just the way, I mean, you look at I think just for economies and the way they're working at the moment, I think it's a stable base.
So many applications,
Many applications. Not many people fully understand it. Because there are so many applications, I presume.
Yeah.
I think some governments are resisting this sort of change.
For sure.
But I do think it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
I agree.
So I think you're, again, a visionary, right on it. So drop me a link, whatever you do, because I'll be there following you.
I will, for sure. Yeah.
So I've got one last question, Daven. First of all,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you ever so much for giving me your time.
Sure.
It really means
My
a lot
pleasure.
to me. So the last question is this. Who would you recommend for this show, an entrepreneur that we could hook up for the next show that you highly respect, connect with, is a man or woman of integrity that would really make a great interview on the Mic Drop Up Close show?
Sure.
Can you think of
I
anybody?
have so many, but you know who I think would be great, not just valuable for your listeners and viewers, but kind of valuable for you too, actually.
Cool.
And that's my buddy Mark Wade.
Cool.
Mark is kind of a newer friend of mine. We live in Vegas, but half the year we live in Puerto Rico. We moved to Puerto Rico about 6 months ago, and we love it there. And there's an amazing community that we live in, wonderful people. And one of my new friends from that community is Mark Wade. And Mark is a chiropractor by profession, but today he's a marketer. And he has developed a platform. So I'm sure you're familiar with like webinar summits, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So lots of people do those, right? But when you do a webinar summit, there are so many moving parts. It is not easy to do, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there's herding all the cats, which are your speakers, all the technical issues, all the mailing that has to go on, managing the viewers, and it's huge. It's a huge undertaking. And Mark is actually in beta right now of a platform that he's created that manages the whole show for you.
Wow.
So it manages all of that for you. And I just think that's really cool. It's a game-changing technology. I'm very excited for him.
It is.
And so let me get him on your show.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be great. And what were we talking about, like the before even going live, about a lot of these live, connection, whether you use Facebook Live, it's never be live. There's always potential issues that can come.
Lots of problems, yeah.
So that's a perfect match, I'd say, and because I was
sure.
marketing and come from that background, that's brilliant. Daven
Yeah.
Michaels, you are an absolute legend. Thank you
Thanks,
ever so much
buddy.
for your
I
time
appreciate
here.
it.
Love to the family, to the partner, and
Thank you.
the 123 family. And I really appreciate all your time here. And thanks for coming to Mic Drops.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me,
Close.
Michael.
Cheers, buddy. Take care. All the best.
Bye-bye,
See
everyone.
you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed listening, then please subscribe to The Mic Drop Show and connect with Michael on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.